It's NLC. My career was just ended during the break. I have no clue what to say. Like, production's bullying me. Jamala's bullying me. The
Yep.
League of Legends is gonna happen.
Mhm.
I mean,
He's having a rough time.
done.
He's having
It's
a
just
rough
it's
time.
over.
I'm
Let's Fløng versus Lucent. Jamada,
yes.
insert pre-canned joke about how it's nice that Lucent have actually got their roster together week 1.
Yes. Obviously, during the UKLC, there was some very interesting ongoings which seem to be happening on and off the Rift. Realistically, we won't dive too much into them, but what the end result was a Lucent, end roster that looked like probably could have made playoffs in the UKLC. That didn't quite get the opportunity to because they didn't actually get fielded for all 14 of their games. This time around, Lucent, it's obviously a different roster to what we saw in the UKLC, but the fact that they have their set of 5 players from the get-go is definitely a very promising sign. And I also think, in general as well, from the get-go, their draft on Tuesday ended up being one that was very, very impressive. Now, granted, it was into a very unorthodox AAB pick of having the Vel'Koz there and not necessarily having, this very traditional mage in the mid lane, but it was still a very well-read draft from Lucent. So I'm excited to see what they pull out there. And as for Fløng, I don't know what to expect. I mean, I feel like we got a decent viewing of them on Tuesday, but at the same time, I'm not sure how much, how much of the same showing we're going to get into what is a Lucent roster to me, which is very, very curious to look at after seeing their previous iteration in the UKLC.
It's going to be a big question, but we've jumped into picks and bans super rapidly, so they're already all done. Jig's not going to be available for this game, unlike the last two. Nothing standing out to me as super strange, but the Twisted Fate has also found its way onto the ban list this time around.
Yeah, it has indeed. So no Twisted Fate going to be there. We see that pick so often in other regions. It feels like in Div 1, I think it only been picked once. I know coming into week 3, it was like 75% presence, 0 picks, which goes to kind of show you just the threat of the champion alone. But very standard bans across the board. The only thing that really stands out to me is the Galio. It's not something that we see consistently banned. But there's the Lee Sin lock-in for Fantasy. So obviously one of those picks which doesn't really reveal too much about your composition, but is definitely a bit of a stranger one when you have a lot of other strong picks like the Xin Zhao, like the Jarvan, AD carries like a Felios, which maybe you don't always want to be one, but you kind of understand the premise of what I'm speaking about there. But we'll be matched out by this Viego here on Fløng's end, and now, I mean, they've got to pick the level if they want to take up that Felios, or if they want to pick up their support. Of course, in this case, it will be that Felios. Now it gives Fuyu and Zimba the opportunity to maybe just take a 2v2 matchup, which they're just comfortable blinding the support in.
Yeah, of course, you could go for the Fresh and deny that from the Aphelios. You could go for something like the Nautilus, which is often seen as a preferred pick into the Fresh if they go that direction. You go for something like the Lulu, which is seen... Enchanters have seen more play in Div 1 than I was necessarily expecting. It's the Varus going over to Fuyu this time around.
Yeah, Varus is traditionally a lane counter and actually just an outright counter to this Aphelios as the game goes on. Especially if you go down that lethality route, you just outrange him so heavily. And the amount of poke that you can put into Aphelios typically kind of just forces him out of the fight all of the time. Now, I feel like in this kind of situation, you kind of do want Thresh, just because it's a takeaway. It stops, of course, Lee Sin from sort of being counted out. But at the same time, I feel like it won't necessarily always fit with the composition of what Lucent maybe want here. And it's going to be the Karma lock-in instead, which of course just sort of sets yourself up for a very hard poke lane. And Fløng going to lock in this Gwen on this R3, which gives them the opportunity to ban away 2 counters into that pick. And obviously, yes, their support pool is going to be pinched out a little bit, but obviously if they're locking in the Gwen, they're rating the strength of that champion very, very highly, and they're not too fussed about whatever the bottom lane matchup ends up being.
Do you reckon Cast Ruler's just saying there, like, give me action, I can carry? But the Dr. Mundo ban is curious.
So yeah, we saw the Dr. Mundo ban play come out on Tuesday from Castrulan, and it was definitely very oppressive. But I feel like in this situation, I mean, you have the tank killing capabilities already in your first 3 picks. You have Viego, which in the earlier stages can definitely burst down Mundo pre sort of that first item. But Aphelios, very, very strong at shredding down tanks once he has the correct gun setup. And I mean, I think Gwen kind of speaks for herself on the damage profile. So definitely a bit of a curious one. Maybe it's a lane matchup that I'm just not familiar with, and Lucent and Fløng just don't want to have to deal with it. But Lulu being removed away, I think, from the Aphelios lane makes a whole bunch of sense when you're potentially running this Karma into the bottom side. And maybe you just do see the Thresh ban away. I think maybe that'll make the most sense. But instead, they want to take away the Nautilus, which honestly, I kind of get. And I think with that Nautilus being banned, it kind of just, signals the green flag for, hey, this Karma's going into the bottom lane, and we want you on this Thresh in most cases. So let's see if Bengi actually, sort of maybe bites the bait on what Lucent are maybe putting down here. Because it definitely does strike me as strange that they themselves don't want to remove away the Thresh in the situation.
It's a question of whether they just really dislike Nautilus and Lulu that much, but the Thresh is going to be the pickup either way, so maybe Lucent are happy to go up against it, maybe they've got a plan, or maybe it's just a case of the smallest of the possible issues because there's so much that can go alongside this Aphelios, and of course Lucent going to be cycling through a few options before they finally land on. We're expecting to see 2 solo layers. Of course, the Karma still has some opportunity to flex, although you'd think it would be unlikely with the couple of pickups. And okay,
yeah. So Urgot was something that we saw come out against the Gwen. Now I don't actually remember. No, it was actually to pretty decent success actually. So we saw one game where Lundorf was in a very comfortable matchup into the set, and then right after that, we saw the Gwen being piloted by, the name is escaping me right now, but it was Valkyrie that was piloting the Urgot. And let me tell you, after watching Lundorf 1v5 and quite literally not get executed because he would always heal up at around that 20% mark, having the execute from the Urgot Ulma is very, very important to shutting down Gwen in those situations. So lane counter, it really feels irritating to play against, and on the side lane, as long as you have enough burst damage to follow through, you will always be able to execute the Gwen off of that threshold. And just the Orianna to round out the draft, which honestly I think makes a lot of sense here. You want to be able to provide a little bit of spacing for your team, but also it really interrupts what this Aphelios wants to do. And now that's a Yone last pick, which the lane matchup certainly into Orianna is going to be pretty fine, but beyond that, I do wonder how it will do. There's a lot of mobile targets, so honestly, I don't mind this Yone pick because as it scales into the later stages of the game, there's not really too much which is going to be able to shut it down on a very consistent basis.
There's a lot of damage and there's a lot of high mechanic champions on the side of Fløng. Whether they will be able to outplay 1v1 or whether Lucent's composition is going to take the game is really the question. But Jamada, what are you preferring? Which is the better of the two comps in your eyes, do you think?
I feel like Lucent probably have a stronger setup, especially towards the early stages of the game, and I think that makes the most sense. You've got this lane bully poke matchup in the bottom side, you've got a counter matchup in the top side, and Orianna can be very stable into the Yone, just sort of farming up. I do worry maybe for the 2v2 in the mid lane between Shafty and Errol into Fantasy and Syntax. I feel like that's one that Fløng have really hard won out once they hit level 6. A lot of burst damage can come out of those two carries, and maybe that's something that Fløng can play towards and use as a bridge maybe towards the bottom side, or maybe they try and bail out Vangstead on the top side in this very rough counter matchup. But I don't know if I prefer one over the other. I feel like they've both got their strengths and weaknesses, and it's going to be more or less on execution on whether or not Fløng can, use this bridge of the mid jungle to get the Aphelios and the Gwen online, and whether or not Lucent can use their very, very strong side lane counter matchups to sort of propel themselves into a far enough lead that Fløng doesn't really have an option to play through in the mid game.
Is this top lane Gwen matchup going to be more or less rough than the one we saw last game?
It should be a little less rough, but I'm actually unsure. I feel like to me, from what I've seen so far, it feels like you pick up the Urgot more as a means to shut down the Gwen split push later on, where Urgot 1 has very spectacular 1v1 scaling, but 2, all you need is the additional help of one extra member to sort of help Gwen burst down Gwen, and then as long as you hit that Fear Beyond Death, you can normally execute her before she starts to pull off the shenanigans where she starts healing from very low HP values back up to sort of half health off of each spell cast.
We'll move on to the Rift, third game of the day. Don't go anywhere because there's 2 more after this one as well. Fløng coming up against Lucent. Both of these teams coming off the back of a win in their debut game at the NLC Division 2. One of them will remain undefeated coming out of the week, tying up with Lightside, who we just saw win as well. Jamada didn't give us a prediction on this game because he's a coward and
this particular game?
Want to. Yeah. When I said which of these games you prefer, you're like, they're both good. There's a lot going on.
Fine. I mean, I feel like Lucent probably have the stronger tools to win out, sort of 20 up to 20 minutes. And I feel like given what we saw from them and the level of patience in particular that we saw from them, on Tuesday. I'm favoring Lucent, honestly, coming into this one.
Okay.
Though, again, Fløng, they've given themselves very, very great tools towards the later stages. So as long as they can hold on, then they should probably have it. If you want my singular vote,
Yeah, that's what I'm
obviously what you want here,
Yes.
I'll say Lucent.
Okay. Nice.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That didn't have to be a whole thing, but it was. You're just lucky there hasn't been an Ornn locked in, because we all know
Okay.
we all know what happens when Ornn gets locked in. But fortunately, these top laners, they're not boring. They want to be scrapping. They're picking Gwen. They're picking Urgot. They're trying to fight. And speaking of fighting, where should we keep our eyes if we want to be watching some early action?
Potentially the top side, but I feel like we're more or less looking towards the junglers and then seeing what the lane states are like, because Fantasy on this Lee Sin doesn't really have too much setup across the board, whereas Shafty has a little more towards the bottom side, so it's more or less on Fantasy to try and track.
Fuyu takes a lot of damage, has the flash pot running to survive the ignite as well. That was close to Lucent giving up first blood.
Yeah, and that's not how you want the start of this lane to go, because this is your lane bully lane. This is your poke lane, and you're kind of setting yourselves up to maybe get flash flayed on, but we're looking towards the mid lane right now.
Oh,
The
Shafty
Syntax is in
going
trouble.
towards Syntax. The Syntax goes down. First blood going Fløng. Nibon on the bot side, they take down Fuyu as well. It's definitely wanted across the board. Although,
Yeah, it is,
Fantasy
Ruben.
coming in to try and get a return kill. Should be able to find it onto Guff. Flashes onto Ron and Becky. The damage is good. The play is better. The death sentence is best, but there's no follow-up just yet. Shafty is moving in though. Zimba's pretty low, but it's a 2v1 that Viego won't take.
Yeah, Viego won't be able to take that one. Yeah, Lucent, I mean, Syntax, over-aggression in the mid lane, trying to deliver that wave in, gets punished by very fast pathing from Shafty. And then on the bottom side, obviously we didn't quite get to see the full POV because we was looking at mid, but you could already see the posturing from Rottenbengi, from Guff. They were always going to flash play onto you, and now Syntax again still has flash predicted in the head of Syntax.
It's clean. It doesn't lead to a kill, but this has been very action-heavy. We're going to see a replay here. Jamal, to talk us through it.
Yeah, so I mean, even after the initial trade, right, you can already see Rottenbengi. This is roughly when we sort of pan up towards the top side. But I mean, you can just kind of see, and actually it just starts off with a death sentence. There's no flash play required on this play at all. And it's just disrespect, I feel like, from both Zimba and Fuyu. You've already lost out the trade, you're really low. I guess what they're holding out for is hope that Fantasy will come down and bail them out of the very poor lane state and health state that they put themselves in. But not the best to start for Lucent when, realistically, that was a condition for them in the early stages. Have this Karma, have this Varus really, really abuse the Thresh and the Aphelios early on. It's not worked out for them. They've not fallen too far behind in terms of the CS, and they are still pulling out a lot of pressure as Errol.
Errol's in a lot of trouble. Shafty is there, but half health, looking to move forward, but the flash from Yoni keeps him alive. Rottenbengi and Guff are there just to make sure that there's not too much nonsense as the blue buff won't even be sold away as it will reset. But yeah, these first 4-5 minutes have been action-packed. A lot of fighting. These teams just want to scrap from minute one.
Yeah, they really do. I think the only lane that's maybe going the way that was being roughly expected is the top side. Right now, 5 minutes in, CS being equal is absolutely fine on both ends. I feel like if you're Gwen, you're definitely the happier of the two as Hex Flash. Well, actually, it was into the
Death
push.
Sentence really good. There's the lads and Zimba flashes, but it's flayed and the damage comes through. Karma goes down, and it goes from bad to worse for Lucent in the bot side.
Yeah, I mean, Fløng doing a really, really great job of just shutting down what the win condition was for Lucent in the early stages. And not only that, it so happens to be setting one of their late game win conditions up as well. So it's two birds with one stone with all of this pressure being put down towards the bottom side. Fuyu reared up here.
Ooh, yeah, Brutes use the cleanse. The death sentence goes just wide. Guff needs to be careful. Does go down. The ignite is running, and Fuyu will burn. But at least he gets the kill in return this time.
Yeah, gets the kill in return, but I mean, look at this wave that's going to be missed here. And Zimba's actually opening up towards the mid lane, so he's not even going to get access to that XP either, though. Hex flashes down towards the bottom side, unless that was a bit of a visual bug and he took the plant instead. Will get down here to at least make it to the XP, but that's XP that Fuyu crucially is missing. That Guff on the opposite side isn't necessarily doing so, even though he died. Still going to be fine in the XP department as Fantasy, I suppose, maybe looking to make a move with Syntax somewhere else. Being called to actually push in this next wave, so they want to keep Errol here clearly for some kind of goal. A lot of pings just went down onto that Ocean Dragon, so it looks like that will be the point of contest here for Lucent, and they should have the lane set up for it because Zimba and Fuyu should be able to shove this wave in. Rotten Bengi might have something to say about it. Doesn't quite have the backup though.
Dragon started up. Guff on the side. They're coming down the ramps and Lucent moving up the river. You can already see Castrulan has wandered down. Remember, the teleport changes mean that it's not going to be easy for Gwen to get involved. And this could be the fight Lucent need. They pick up one. They grind another. And Lucent even up the kills and grab themselves the dragon.
Yeah, great roll from Castrulan, honestly. And he did this on Tuesday too. On the Mundo, I think it was maybe the second dragon though, not the first one, where they get a good lane stay up in the top side and then they just roam the top laner down. So that he can make a play and then teleport back up to the wave. Seems like a bit of a set play Lucent have in their back pocket. Other teams definitely moving forward. Might have to look out for that one, but works for them this time. Fløng not ready for that roam. And like you said, Bankstead, because of the teleport changes, you just can't get involved in this fight right now. Has to deliver the wave back in hopes that Castrulan just misses out on it. In this case, he doesn't. Really great setup from Castrulan to find that shockwave as well, or be the delivery system for that shockwave.
In the mid lane against Errol. It's been... I need to catch my breath a little bit. There's been a lot of fighting. Both of these teams are really getting at it, and Lucent bringing themselves back onto even keel. In fact, getting themselves a small gold lead moving into the 8-minute mark. But in the mid lane, there's yet more fighting. It's another kill going over to Fantasy, as Lucent don't want to be even. They want to be ahead.
Yep, they do indeed. And this is more of the Lucent that we were seeing sort of in the earlier stages of Tuesday. They were willing to make a lot of plays with the carries that they did have. It's definitely a very juxtaposed composition to what they had on day one. As it looks like we have a bit of a pause here, as Fantasy seems to be having some kind of connection issues, you would imagine. Maybe just getting a restart for now. But yeah, definitely a very action-packed way to open up this game. I feel like Lucent at the moment, they need to just, pull ahead a little further if they were to feel, probably closer to comfortable here. Because again, the scaling of Gwen, we've seen it, on day one, it was absolutely disgusting. I don't want to see Gwen too much open after week one, to be honest with you. And of course, we know about Philios. We know about how many years he has in his back pocket. And there isn't realistically too much hard engage on Lucent's draft. It's mostly kind of just ranged poke and sort of fishing ultimates to find fights. So if they can't really use those to consistently pick on the likes of the Aphelios or make sure they shut down the Yone when he dives in, the Aphelios, the Yone, and eventually the Gwen can definitely take over this game. So I want to see them push their leads a little further.
And that's what they need to be doing, essentially. You've hit the nail on the head. It's hard to jump off because you're always just kind of right, except when, you make predictions that are incorrect. But, it's hard to discuss because you're just hitting all the analysis. It makes my life difficult.
Sorry, all right, well, how about... All right, we're having a bit of a cost to me in mid-pause.
Okay.
I hear gameplay in my ears.
Oh, we're going back into game.
Okay, that would be why. All right, we're back into it. Hey, well, it's fine. We'll talk about the cost.
Well, we'll have the cost anyway. It's fine. Yeah. I'm still slightly broken from the last game we saw. If you're just joining us, you've missed some good League of Legends this evening. It's been pretty fantastic. I won't make any spoilers, but you need to go back and watch game number 2. But game number 3 has also been eminently entertaining. And it looks like it's going to continue because Rotten Bengi is not wanting for you to have a pleasant experience.
Maybe not. Zimba will join for you again in the bottom side, so we'll be able to step up for some of the CS. But yeah, definitely a very interesting game too that we had. I will give you one minor spoiler. Have you ever seen a team take 15 plates in a competitive game? If you haven't, then you'll certainly enjoy it. Yes, definitely matching the same level of chaotic energy in this game so far, at least. As Castrulan must have found a flip here to get a pretty decent trade-off.
Does have the Beyond Death as well. Remember when Urgot hits level 9, that's when he can just turn on his W and take his hands off the keyboard, go get a drink. Just have a good time, really, because he's going to be able to output so much damage onto this Gwen. And we know how good Gwen is at staying alive when maybe she shouldn't, but Rotten Bengi, just every time he goes out of vision, he's a threat. And he's shown that he wants to get involved.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it definitely would be a bit of a poor timer for them to do it on, just because they don't necessarily have an idea of where this Lee Sin is. So it'll certainly be risky. But again, it speaks into the mentality of what Fløng's bottom lane is right now. They're happy to fight, despite actually being slightly worse off in the score department. And maybe pressure as Errol, maybe setting up for a mid-lane gank.
Gets the knock-up, decent damage coming on through him. There'll be a little bit more. The Opwolf whiff, though, as he strikes back to the mid lane. Fancy was there to dissuade any further follow-up, even though members from both teams had shown their faces. And it peters out into a little bit of wave clear in the mid side.
Yeah, setups like that always very difficult. I feel like you have to chain the knock-up into the R straight away, otherwise you just don't really get that chain CC that you're looking for. But still, blowing the flash of Syntax, very much worth. And now it means that just being immobile on that Orianna means setup to follow it can be very easy. Shafty may be in trouble. Heartbreaker out.
Fantasy needs to be a little bit careful, not going to be caught by that death sentence. Though Fuyu has been given a little bit of time to breathe, grabbed himself a second plate, and actually in terms of farm has found his way ahead of Gov. So even though the early game he was set back pretty notably, he's found his way back in.
Yeah, he has, and this is more what we were expecting from the lane state, originally coming into it, right? Relatively sizable CS lead, in this case 20 CS up at 10. Definitely quite big, but what you would maybe expect if this lane is left to isolation and Rottenbengi can't find consistent death sentences, which for the last little while he hasn't been able to. Now, one thing we didn't necessarily talk about was Shafty picking up this Rift Herald, which he is now potentially looking to place up in the top side. Whether they get the tower or not, definitely not the end of the world, but the plates be the big prize here, as 600 or more gold will be funneled into the duo of Shafty and Bankstead. Whether or not they want to stay to commit for the tower is a different conversation. Castrulan doesn't quite feel it. His flash isn't up just yet. Otherwise, I feel with that Hull Breaker, he would have been feeling himself in a 2v1. Flash E certainly could have locked up either Shafty or Bankstead, though maybe worrying about the exhaust and not quite willing to give his life up for that tower.
In the bot side, they're looking towards the Dragon. This one should be taken pretty easily by Lucent. Second of the game and second for them, which means that they're going to be in the driving seat when it comes to Soul, and Gold dead even as it's taken down. It's going to be a Mountain Dragon. We don't want any of these newfangled dragons around these parts. We want the good old-fashioned Mountain Shield coming through. But you mentioned the Hull Breaker there for the Urgot. For those people who are maybe just tuning into Div 2 for the first time here, what's going on with that item? What are we kind of seeing from the Urgot?
So actually, I was kind of surprised to see this itemization on Tuesday, because I'm so used to seeing Urgots effectively go into Titanic Hydra, and then in some cases just forego the Mythic even at second item. Syntax
survives. It's close, but he gets away.
Yeah, Errol had to bail out there. Didn't want to get CC'd by the Shockwave. Otherwise, one more auto probably would have sealed the deal. Crit or not, I think the extra true damage that could have been applied would have been enough on the snapback. But yes, returning to the Urgot build paths, as this game really doesn't want to give us a moment to breathe, does it? All right, poke.
Quick, Hoverger.
Potential respite. So,
oh no, Fantasy's fighting Shafty. He misses Machuno, and now he's into the launch trouble, gets the kickback. No, Syntax doesn't have. Oh, it's a 2v1, but Viego can reset. Remember, he dives on forward, grabs himself a body, and now he's got the help from Errol. He's got Lucent. He can follow on, but he's gonna jump into the enemy team, but now he can get a second reset. And now he's Orianna. The damage coming through is big, as Fuyu's gonna have to flash over the wall, but he follows up. That's a triple for Shafty, and now he's Forest looking to snipe down to Zimba, but the Karma is too quick and too healthy. And just like that, Fløng, it's not an even game anymore.
It's the nightmare scenario we were speaking about actually last game where Viego was present, where there were so many powerful forms for Viego to steal away. He takes away probably the most powerful form he can take at this point in the game. The Lee Sin, so mobile, a lot of abilities that just have so much base power in them to be then followed up by a Heartbreaker. It's so powerful at this early stage of the game. And then, yeah, just cycling through champions one after the other because of the power of that passive. And yeah, Fløng went out on that skirmish there. 3 kills go over to Shafty. So confident to take that 2v1. Very willing and honestly very confident in his own champion's limits there, as I think we can now touch on the Urgot items.
I was going to say, dare we talk about Urgot's build?
Dare we talk about Urgot items? I'm not too sure. All right. So yeah, I was quite surprised. No, we're going to have a replay.
We don't. Okay, replay. Even production's trolling us at this stage. Goodness me.
Yeah, I'm hoping that actually Gwen doesn't get picked on. We'll obviously see this replay here first. So Fantasy tries to come over the wall, misses the Sonic Wave, and then tries to kick Shafty back into Syntax. But the issue is Shafty put down so much damage and still had the Heartbreaker to come back in to Syntax. That didn't really matter. And like I was talking about, Lee Sin, the most powerful form probably in the game for him to take at the moment. So mobile, so much damage coming out at level 9 that he just runs down the Orianna, and then eventually able to heartbreak over the wall as we come back into live.
Oh my word, Syntax!
Yeah, Syntax is gone. Still no flash on the Orianna. And yeah, just a nice pick, it seems like, from Plunge. Now, the response will be Lucent taking down this bottom tier 1, but as you can see on the minimap still, Shafty is picking up a Rift Herald again, which we've already seen propelled him into very strong heights, being able to 2v1 the mid jungle of Lucent already. As the Broad lead has blued, honestly, kind of in a very sneaky fashion, to over 3,000 here for Plunge. So definitely on the right tracks as, thank you, Reed, pulls up the gold values in the game. And yeah, it's the jungle where this biggest lead exists right now. Almost 2,000 ahead, Shafty is. Off the back of the kills, off the back of the tower on the top side. It makes the most sense, but also, yeah, it's the mid lane too. Errol will find himself a lot of kills so far. It's 1.5k up. The only real lead is on the bottom side of Syntax.
In a lot of trouble, gets deleted by Vangstead on the side wave, and another little bit of gold goes the way of Flonge.
Yeah, and this is what we're talking about, the Gwen scaling on the side lane. It's so powerful for one champion that can definitely sort of match, maybe 1-to-1, just because of the way the kits interact. It's the Urgot in this game at the very least. And yeah, I think, all right, is it how long have we been trying, Will?
Let's try again. Come on.
All right.
Urgot.
So, Hullbreaker, one of those items which is honestly not picked up by too many champions, but is very cost efficient when obviously all the stats are present, right? You get all of the extra AD and resistances when you're alone, and of course the damage to towers via the cannon creeps too. It makes for 1v1ing champions very, very difficult on the opposite end, just because of how stat efficient the item itself is. And of course, used to see more of the Titanic Hydra plus Black Cleaver into maybe a mythic third. But these days, the Hullbreaker into Titanic Hydra seems to be the more efficient build path for these Urgots. They stay on the side lane, try and make that item work. As it's controlled in the mid lane for Flonge. Lucent gave that one up to be in the river because they are working towards, of course, that sole point. Which is Cloud, isn't touching it too much. Chains Corruption goes wide. So Lucent right now, they want to be first in the river. So I think it benefits their composition the most, walking into the likes of the Shockwave, the poke from Varus. The Orma on Varus is going to make things a little bit awkward, but you can already see the pokers come in. And Plunge is going to have a really hard time walking in, bro.
Bengi's going to get suppressed fantasy. Can't get the kick because the character's gone. And they're moving towards the dragon, which is actually a mountain soul. Don't know why the overlay is deceiving us this time around, but it's going to be picked up by Lucent all the same.
Right. Small. There you go. I've never seen that bug.
This is a game of this is a lot of firsts in this game.
Yeah, a lot of firsts in this game. I agree. Yeah, gotta log it down. Lucent now one away from Mountain Soul. Definitely gonna help them out. A lot of the free stats and the shield gonna make taking them down very, very difficult, or just a touch harder. There is a lot of damage on the side of Flonge. A lot of mixed profiles, particularly the Gwen and the Yone. Yone, of course, deals all 3 magic types, or damage types rather, true, magic, and physical. Whilst Gwen, of course, magic and true primarily, which is probably the best thing you could hope for against Mountain at the end of the day, being able to cut through the resistances with that true damage. But if they do give it over, it's still going to feel very, very irritating to cut through. Lucent, despite that, that's kind of their only position right now. They're still 4,000 gold down as Fuyu.
Very slow.
Yeah.
But this time round, he doesn't go down, which is maybe a nice change of pace from laning phase. But as we said, Fuyu has been quietly farming himself into relevancy. He's got even with Guff. Well, actually, looking at the scoreline, it's identical, because he also was not the recipient of all of the kills that were gained in the early stages. So we can't necessarily say the same as Shafty, who's just ghosting Errol and making sure that no one's going to be able to catch onto the Yone. Picks up a tower in the bot side, and Fuyu and Fancy immediately moving forward mid to try and put pressure on the Aphelios, who's currently seems to be guarding solo. Bengi has just turned up to ward away any dive potential, but the tower's gonna go, and I think there might be a fight in the offing as Errol and Shafty moving in from the side. Castrulan has already tried to dive away, but the follow-up isn't gonna be there in any terms of CC, and Lucent managed to make it to their tower.
Yeah, angle didn't quite line up for Errol to find an ultimate, as Bankstead used his ultimate on the blue buff. Not sure why, but sorry, I just caught my eye for a second. No, right. Gwen is being zoomed in on here because it's the Cafe Huey skin, and that was the skin in which we saw war crimes committed by Lundor on a Tuesday. As it's actually Cosmic Drive, a bit of a step away from the itemization that we've been seeing from Gwen here in Div 2, and actually just in general. It's normally been the Stinger, the item the Stinger used to build out, the Nash's Tooth. So we'll have to see how that one does in terms of damage here. Of course, Cosmic Drive did get changed in the preseason too. But yeah, I mean, I feel like Fløng still sitting pretty comfortably in this game. The only thing they have to worry about is maybe giving over that early soul. But even then, it's not a game-breaking soul like, of course, the Chemtech Dragon or the Infernal Dragon, which can really, really amp up and make up for a lot of the gold difference in the raw damage that it can provide the team. And I think when you take a look at the items, most of Fløng should be ready to fight. I feel like Errol and Guff should probably hit their second items before this next dragon, though. Actually, really, if we could talk gold, I'd be curious to see where Guff actually is. No, Guff certainly will hit second item. So, honestly, taking a look back, if we can come back into the itemizations here, as gold values are quite low. Fuyu is technically on Spike. Syntax won't hit his second item, most likely. But Castrulan has 2 items. And for now, the only other item discrepancy is between Fantasy and Shafty. So it is kind of back and forth. But I feel like Lucent should probably be stronger for now. Errol's items kind of do make up for the fact that he's not 2 items because he's got the additional Zeal in his back pocket. So in terms of stats, he's almost there. But the IE's crit damage amplification is such a big damage spike for Yone that, okay, it's definitely not going to be making up fully. So there's punches back and forth between the itemization. You've got 1 minute until this dragon spawns up. And it's going to be about who controls the area, I suppose, as right now Fløng has got all the priority in both the bottom side and the mid lane, which is starting to bleed over into the jungle vision a little bit.
Yeah, but able to control it and make sure that if members of Lucent are moving forward, they have to clear vision as they do, slowing them up a little bit. And as you mentioned, this dragon's going to be a big fight. It's not the end of the world if they lose it, but either team's going to want to do so. Lucent might not be too convinced, but if they're on the same page as you, if they've been listening to Jamada Radio, they know that they might be the stronger of the two teams if a pitched battle were to be faced right now. Dragon up in 10 seconds time. Fløng looking for the engagement. He missed the death sentence. Damage coming down. That's a lot going on to Fresh, and he is going to be removed. Fear beyond death secures the kill, and now Lucent are looking for more. They get Guff. They get a double. They turn around towards Bankstead. They get another, and just like that, it's not an even contest. Dragon Soul will go over to Lucent unless Shafty can pull something out.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Flash, he's got Heartbreaker, but he just doesn't have any information on how low that dragon is, so unfortunately isn't going to be able to get into the pit. Just going to take a reset. Except the fact that he couldn't secure that one, though. Lucent eyeing up the Baron, and honestly, I can't blame them. There's teleport available on Bankstead. He's up in 15 seconds. This Baron actually might go down quickly just because of how much max HP damage this Urgot can do. So this should probably be Baron going down as well. Unless we see some kind of like teleport contest from both the solo laners. Fløng, they're in there to maybe take a fight afterwards, but I just don't know if they're really willing to.
Shafty on the back of the pit. We've seen steals aplenty in the NLC so far, but it's not going to be this time. Shafty goes over too late, can't get out. Will be able to take the lantern out as Errol goes in and tries to make sushi. He's not going to be able to. And now Bankstead's up to the plate. Can he get a first kill? Yes, he can. Can he go for more? Looking at Castrulan, it's not sushi, but it's crab cakes. Although, nice split, nice shield. The damage is big, but it will be the shutdown for Gwen in the end. 3 members of Lucent will be able to sneak away with Baron, but Fløng make a couple pay.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, that Baron, in terms of the gold swing, I know obviously we don't have Baron power plays tracked, but that might almost be an even one. I'm not sure if Fuyu might have had like one of those weird 150 bounties on him or not. But you think about it like this, Fuyu died and now there's an 850 gold shutdown plus this tower. Effectively, the gold remains even. It's just the members that are walking away with the Baron buff now. Bankstead might go down.
Will go down. Nice ultimate coming through from Syntax.
That just about evens the Baron power play, you know, to at least, well, when you think about it, it's only maybe a 200 on top of what they actually started with before the Baron, just because of all the shutdown golds and such. So it's just the members walking away with the buff. It's about what they can actually accomplish with it. They've got the top tier 1 that's still up and available, which is, you know, at this point, realistically just kind of standing gold. And then it's going to be about, all right, can we move this Baron buff into other lanes to actually pick up, you know, something to say that, okay, we picked up the Baron. But for now, it's like they're going to have to just kind of take things slow. They've got 90 seconds left on the Baron buff for now. I feel like Fløng, a lot of wave clear, a lot of dive threat. And we was talking about at that Dragon Soul point, you know, Lucent probably still in a very comfortable position to fight, and they certainly were, but I feel like Fløng, if they had maybe better setup, as you saw towards that Baron pit, right, where Errol got into the back line, and it looked really, really dangerous, and then Bangstead got in after the fact. Imagine if they'd hit the same targets at the exact same time. Would have been absolute decimation for Lucent's backline. But able to find it this time as...
Oh, they're looking for it now, though, but we're moving towards the top line. Casper Brunin is going to get the 1v1 against Bangstead, taking them down, as no one in the mid lane actually falls. No idea how that happened, but Lucent will be looking to continue the push forward. They grab one and are looking to break open the base. 26 minutes in, and they're onto the inhibitor tower. Urgot in the top side is also gaining ground, and just like that, Fløng, the game looks so even, the game looks so close, but they're hemorrhaging resources, they're hemorrhaging territory. And just like that, the inhibitor is broken. They move towards the top side to join up with Urgot. Yeah, he's got Hullbreaker, but it doesn't matter when he's got a team around him, as the inhibitor tower top falls as well. You've got to imagine that Fløng aren't too comfortable, but Lucent happy to back away for now. The Baron power play definitely in their grasp again.
Yeah, definitely back in their play now. After getting that top kill, getting all the towers and the inhibitors. And what feels really bad for Fløng here is the fact that it was the top inhib and the mid inhib that actually went down, because now Lucent can just full send it all bot lane. 4, 5 members, and then they can just sit and siege that bottom side whilst the supers do the rest of the work. And if they can't break the base or end the game in the next 2 minutes, well, they're always going to have first move onto this Elder Dragon because of the spawn timer on it. So Fløng says to me, I'm honest with you, they're going to have to just try and pull the trigger. ASAP, try and break up the tempo here, but Shafty getting caught out.
Nice ultimate though, as Errol dives on forward. It's 2v4 though, and Fløng need to escape. They should be able to for now, but the speed from the Karma, the speed from the Orianna, Fantasy's mobility as well. They might get caught out. Ron Bendy has a lantern, but he only got room for 1 passenger. As it looks like everyone gets away safely. Only this time though.
Only this time, but you have to take a look at the wave states, right? Because now there's Castrulin in the mid lane. He's just got this mid lane wave in for now, but it's going to be about that slow stacking top wave. It's going to meet this next cannon wave coming out, and it's going to have 2 supers stacked up, and then eventually the third one will follow. So that's stacking up pressure, which Fløng are going to have to respond with very, very soon, as Castrulin's also again guiding this mid wave in, which someone's going to have to answer. Lucent, they can really press the issue here with all of these waves. They just slowly stack up as a 4 in this bottom lane.
Spreading the defenses, causing Fløng to have to move around and defend in every single lane. The macro has been good from Lucent so far. And of course they've got the Elder Dragon to fight over in less than a minute's time as well. Whether this could be the decisive blow for Lucent, whether it could be an opportunity for Fløng to try and get back into this game. Do they have a shot if they can take this Elder Dragon down?
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, at the moment, I feel like Fløng, they really have to break up this tempo that Lucent have going for themselves right now, because they can consistently sit in this pattern for the next 3 or 4 minutes until the inhibitors actually respawn. And there's no telling, of when Lucent will decide to just pull back to the Elder. They could just go back to it on this wave if they really want to. It's the first wave that's properly crashing on the bottom side. Like Fløng, they don't go here. They're gonna have to walk into a much deeper, darker territory towards that Elder Dragon, and I'm just not sure how much that really favors them, that fight. And if they lose the Elder buff, then I'm pretty sure they just get dove and lose the game.
Well, you can already see Lucent moving towards it. It's going to be spawning up, and it will go down pretty quickly with this Urgot here. Members of Fløng are moving towards it. You've got Bangstead over the back of the pit. You've got Errol there as well. They really don't want to give this one up. They want to take the flip. They want to take the fight. But Castrulin has been sent into the back line. Yone dives away. Bangstead dives in. Lucent now, they're trying to dive onto as many members as they can.
Oh.
Errol is in full retreat, but the damage going through is pretty massive. And Lucent might lose this fight. They've already lost one member. As Guff moves into the middle, Vangsted is looking for Fuyu. They'll be able to find him in the Dragon Pit. Flong's diving back in. Errol out and in. They're going around the houses. Castrulan flashes away. But Flong, they take the fight. It's 4-for-1 and the Dragon to boot.
It's the disaster scenario for Lucent here. Flong, they double teleport Vangsted and Errol all the way at this red bot. It's a control
The base.
ward on the base. I don't think he's going to end the game. He should at least get this tower. He'll die for it at the very least. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, Errol, the damage is big, but the Elder Dragon, remember, he's just going to get executed, and it's the ace for Rotten Bengi.
Yeah, it's that control ward by the red buff of Lucent, which allows this teleport flank to happen. And I'm just not sure if Lucent were actually ready for it. Whenever somebody teleports onto control ward, you can see it on the minimap. So it felt like maybe Lucent were trying to go and actually collapse on the teleport itself, but so much damage available to Errol, to Vangsted. If they're able to dive into the backline, they can one-shot people with all of the AoE damage they have, and they did it in this scenario. And because everyone was still so split, you had a couple of members still at the actual Dragon Pit itself, and a couple of members inside the Dragon. Flong's just clean up house because the fight is so messy and so scrappy, as we'll get to see on the replay. So here's the teleport. You can see the pings are coming out because it's on a control ward. So the information is there from Lucent. And it's just an immediate ward hop over it, just a little bit too far. And you can see Errol just almost gets one-tapped between the two members. Fantasy does. And you can see Vangsted back over the wall on top of Syntax, exhaust, snip, 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 and almost one-taps him. As soon as Shafty sees that information over the wall. Same for Guff here. And it's just complete mop-up duty for the rest of the team because of all of that damage Vangsted managed to get onto so many members. Lucent not ready to take a fight in such a scrappy nature. It gives over the Elder Dragon to Flong, and now an opportunity maybe for a comeback.
Got themselves Baron, they've got themselves Elder Soul. The inhibitors have spawned as well, so a little bit of backdoor protection from any roaming Urgots. No teleports available on them either. I don't know, is one good team fight enough to end the game, do you think, for Flong?
I think right now, I mean, they've got Baron buff, the Elder, I think is actually about to wear off in, I think they've got 30 more seconds. So,
Awesome, aren't they?
yeah, I mean, if Lucent try and fight right now, they should just get absolutely wiped. So I feel like they might have to give up things. The issue is, Flong, they don't really have like the greatest forms of hard engage, so they can't get a dive going. It's really hard commit if you want to dive in. And it seems like they're just not willing to do that. And potentially throw away the game after they've gotten so close to winning. We'll signal the retreat for now. As Lucent given a potential second chance at closing out this game. Gold lead at this point, it's starting to matter less and less. I feel like, yes, there are some iron discrepancies here and there. But right now, it's really just a game of execution. 32 minutes in with 6k between the teams.
He says it's a game of execution as the Elder Dragon buff falls off. Shaking my head.
Okay, well. All right, buddy.
What are we fighting over next? What's the next play?
I mean,
what are these teams
it's the Elder and the Baron, right? They spawn within 40 seconds of each other. So one of these two teams is going to definitely have to posture for it one way or the other. And if that dragon doesn't go down very quickly, then it could be a game of guessing, right? A game of, you know, sort of cat and mouse. Oh, we're starting the Baron. No, we're starting the Elder. Come to us. It's all going to come down to who makes it to which river first. And who is willing to effectively kind of just pull the trigger. Because it feels like, you know, in this game, there's not really a true, you know, hard engage tool on either side, right? Not one that you would typically sort of refer to as a hard engage tool, right? Yes, okay, cool. The only thing really you have on Flong is sort of what? Fate Sealed, Death Sentence, but you don't necessarily want to go into a Fate Sealed unless you know you're connecting onto multiple high target or high value targets if you're Errol, so you're never really going in unless it looks like a free fight. And as for Rotten Bengi, again, the Death Sentence has to connect onto most likely Syntax, because Fuyu can always cleanse away that Death Sentence. And of course, Lucent, I think it goes without saying, the hard engage pretty much just entirely relies on flanks, or Fuyu finding a Chains of Corruption, or Fantasy, of course, finding a nice flank into kick. So it's going to be a slow one. It's going to be around these objectives where we actually see any action.
But those objectives are creeping closer and closer.
Yeah.
1.5 minutes on the Elder Dragon, 2.25 minutes on the Baron. Is there a objective you prefer? One that's a little bit higher value at the moment? Elder?
Elder. Yeah. It's not close. It's not close. I think yes. I feel like it's been the case since Elder's been in the game in this iteration of it. The Baron, right? Yeah, great. Buffed up supers or buffed up minions. Yes, it's a great siege tool. Elder just flat removes 15% HP or 20% HP off the enemy team. It's just a far more powerful buff.
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good, right? And I think in many cases it just ends games more consistently than Baron does because it's such a powerful tool. Just being able to remove off those extra couple of seconds in some cases, which you would have to use to kill certain members of a team or of a champion. It's just a far more powerful tool than Baron usually is on average.
Yeah, so trading for Baron and Elder, you don't want to be seeing that one. It's going to be a fight around Elder, you've got to imagine, with Baron being up second as well. And you can already see Fløng moving down there, clearing out vision, wanting to take control of the river. This time around, they had success while defending it. They might want to make a play attacking, although Urgot has just teleported. He wants to get in the mix as soon as possible. Gwen and Yone hanging around in the jungle. Can't try and catch Shaft. He's a pretty decent way away. Lucent much more connected, much more together at the moment. If the fight kicks off now, they're just running down the mid lane. They want to try and end this one. They don't want to fight over these objectives. As Errol moves forward, there's no point taking down the minions because there's no towers to defend. Bangstead is the only one that's standing between them and the Nexus. He's going to have to go golden as finally Fløng get into defend. They've got the syntax, but Lucent just don't care. They're going for the objective. What can they do? It's Urgot, it's Lee Sin, and just like that, they go down mid and end the game and pick up an undefeated week 1.
I can't believe it. What have I just seen? This game was so high in tension. Both of these teams were posturing and ready to fight over this Elder Dragon or the Baron. And Lucent just say, hold on a minute. We've got 3 members chilling at Wolves. We've got 1 member that's just walking from the top side of the jungle back into the base. We don't care where the 5th member is. If we could just run down mid and end,
It's anticlimactic, is what it is. It's excellent short calling from Lucent to see, we understand where everyone is, let's just go end this game. We want to take the win, let's not flip a dragon that we lost last time. But, ooh, that's a way to end a tense game, is what that is.
That's disappointing. That's disappointing. Actually, yeah. Let's just before we toss to a break because we are so far ahead of schedule. I guess we can do it. Let's get a replay of that. I think if Reed, if you've got it already, because okay, so this is obviously POV from Lucent. You can see they see 3 members right here. They know where Gwen is, and at that point, it's just kind of a go signal. They probably sort of guesstimate that the Shafty is going to be with that 4, with those other 3. So they just run it down mid because they know they can afford to do this. And it's like, okay, Bangstead Zonya's is to try and buy time, but it's like, okay, we'll just walk past him. Syntax, again, on the backside, Zonya's is to make sure that no one else is really paying attention to him or tries to, buy time. And then, yeah, Fløng can't catch up to Lucent. It's just excellent shot calling from Lucent to just be like, okay, snap decision moment here. They're not defending their base with open Nexus. Let's go for it.
And I said that they had a defense against the back door, but they didn't have any defense at the front door, which was the issue. We're going to jump to a short break. When we come back, it's going to be interviews with both teams, so don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few minutes.